Why do sergeants always say, never volunteer for anything? I learned this lesson the hard way during my first year in the Army. Fort Benning, 2019. I was a private, eager to impress, wanted to stand out from the crowd. Our company commander walks into the barracks one Tuesday morning, needs 6 volunteers for a special detail. Says it's an important mission that'll look great on our records. My hand shoots up immediately. So do 5 others. Private Brendan from Texas, Wade from Ohio, Curtis from Michigan, Sterling from California, and 2 guys named Pierce and Garrett. We're all fresh out of basic training, still have that motivation, that drive to prove ourselves. The old-timers just sit there shaking their heads. Commander tells us to report to the motor pool at 0600 the next morning. Dress in work uniform, bring gloves. That's it, no other details. We show up early, excited, ready for whatever important mission awaits us. A sergeant we'd never seen before is waiting with a flatbed truck. All right, volunteers, load up. We've got a full day ahead. Drives us 40 minutes off base to this enormous warehouse in the middle of nowhere. Place looks abandoned. Weeds growing through the parking lot. Windows covered in dust. Sergeant unlocks this massive rolling door. Inside is floor-to-ceiling military equipment from what looks like the Vietnam War era. Old radios, broken generators, rusted tools, equipment nobody's touched in decades. Your mission is to inventory every single item in this warehouse. Count it, catalog it, document the condition. Should take about 3 days. 3 days turns into 3 weeks. The warehouse was bigger than it looked. Had a basement level we didn't discover until day 4. Everything covered in decades of dust, rust, and spiderwebs. No air conditioning. Middle of Georgia summer. Temperature inside hit over 100 degrees by noon every day. We're drinking water by the gallon, sweating through our uniforms twice a day. The equipment was useless. Radios from the 60s that would never work again. Generators seized up from sitting unused. Boxes of spare parts for vehicles the Army retired 30 years ago. But we had to document everything. Write down serial numbers worn smooth by rust. Measure and weigh items that fell apart when we touched them. Take photographs of junk nobody would ever use. Wade developed a heat rash that covered his entire back. Curtis twisted his ankle climbing over a pile of old tires. Brendan got a nail through his boot from some rusty metal. Every morning that sergeant would drop us off with our lunch and coolers. Every evening he'd pick us up covered in dirt and rust. Never stayed to help. Just sat in his air-conditioned truck reading magazines. Week 2, we discovered the real reason we were there. The Army was shutting down the warehouse. Needed inventory before disposal, but the regular disposal company had gone out of business. Our volunteer mission was basically free labor to count garbage before they bulldozed the building. Nothing important. Nothing that would help our careers. Just grunt work nobody else wanted to do. Sterling found paperwork dated from 2003. Previous commanders had been trying to get this warehouse cleaned out for 16 years. Always used volunteers because nobody wanted to assign it officially. The breaking point came on day 18. We're moving this heavy metal cabinet when the bottom falls out. Hundreds of dead roaches pour onto the floor. Pierce screams like he's under enemy fire. That night we confronted the sergeant, asked him straight up when this detail would end. He just shrugged. When the inventory's complete, could be another week, maybe 2, depends how thorough you are. Brendan had enough. Why didn't you tell us what this really was before we volunteered? Sergeant smiled. Because if I told you the truth, nobody would have raised their hand. That's why smart soldiers never volunteer. Next morning we showed up to find 3 brand new privates joining us. Fresh volunteers the commander had recruited. Told them the same story about an important mission. We pulled them aside immediately, explained what they'd actually signed up for, the heat, the junk, the endless counting of worthless equipment. The looks on their faces matched how we felt 3 weeks earlier. One of them, this kid named Quincy, asked us the same question we'd asked. Why didn't you guys warn people not to volunteer? Wade laughed. We're warning you right now, you just already volunteered. Took us another week to finish. 26 days total in that miserable warehouse. When it was finally done, the commander thanked us for our dedication and flexibility. Put letters of appreciation in our files. Never mentioned the deception or the conditions. Just moved on to the next thing. Back in the barracks, Sergeant Holloway called us over. He was one of the old-timers who'd sat quietly when the commander asked for volunteers. You boys learned an important lesson. In the Army, when they need volunteers for something actually good, they just assign the best people. When they ask for volunteers, it means the job is so bad they can't force anyone to do it. From that day forward, my hands stayed down during formation. Watched 3 more groups of eager privates volunteer for special missions over the next year. Each time they'd come back weeks later, exhausted and betrayed, having learned the same lesson we did. Never volunteer. Those 2 words became my religion. Saved me from countless terrible details during the rest of my service. The warehouse got demolished 6 months later. All that equipment we'd counted, bulldozed into a landfill without anyone ever looking at our inventory reports. 26 days of our lives documenting junk that nobody wanted, needed, or would ever use again. That's why sergeants always say never volunteer.